If you've been trying to get your license, but you've been feeling defeated, deflated, or discouraged, I think you've come to the right video, because I was there myself. It took me a really long time in comparison to my peers and to everyone I had around me to obtain my driver's license. So today I want to bring this video to you to talk about how I managed to get my license in the UK at the age of 36. Keep watching and we will go into it. Growing up, I went back and forth between Portugal and Guinea-Bissau. And I remember once in Guinea-Bissau being hit by a car. So my maid was with myself and I think my little brother and a couple other people. We were walking somewhere and I was walking but looking backwards to talk to them because I was walking ahead of them. And because I was looking backwards, I obviously didn't notice what was coming at me, and there was a car coming and he tried to stop before reaching me. So he managed to stop, but I mean, he still hit me and I fell. I don't think it was great impact because I was able to walk away from it and not tell anyone that wasn't there. But I fell on my knees, I hurt myself, and that was a whole thing. And then I just had this fear of cars after that. Fast forward a couple of years, I went to America to live. And as I was reaching the age where in America you can start driving lessons and all of that, your girl was undocumented. It was a little bit scary, and I didn't want to put myself in a compromising position where I try to drive just for the sake of it and then something happens and I get pulled over and la migra. So with that said, at that time, all of my friends were getting their driver's license and I was just no, I got hit by a car. I don't really think I'm ever gonna drive. I'm just gonna have a driver and everything's gonna be fine. And that became my story to myself and I held on to that for dear life. In 2006, I moved to the UK and by this point I was 20 and I lived mainly in London. And living in London, if you are in London or if you've been to London or you know how chaotic it is. I lived in zone 3 and I worked in zone 1. It's having a car would have been an extra expense on top of everything else. And at the time I was a student as well. I'm already counting coins. I don't really have the money to be having a car and paying congestion charge and paying this charge and paying that charge. Did they even have congestion charge at that time? I could walk to a tube station and be wherever I needed to be in half an hour. And then it's where are you gonna park your car? It was just a whole bunch of what's. So, and then on top of that, I still worked and studied in central London. So I was gonna have to get a travel card regardless. So I was just who got money to be paying all of this and pay for a car on top of it? Not I. So, okay. Then in 2012, I left London for a little bit. I went to Guinea-Bissau, and when I got there, I mean, I could have done my license there, to be fair, but Guinea-Bissau was just so chaotic for me. Africa, there are no rules. Everybody does what they want to do. I mean, there's supposed to be rules, but look, I was scared. And to be quite frank, I don't think that was in my mind at the time, just because I had means of getting everywhere, whether it be with friends or it be with taxis. Bissau was small, so it's easy to get everywhere. So I didn't really feel that need to drive or anything. So I didn't get my license there either. So in 2014, I moved to Holland. Oh, you guys, I know. I jump all over the place. I was in Rotterdam. You can get to everywhere easily. And you have transportation there, you have trams, and then we had our bikes. So I was biking to work, biking home. Very rarely did I need to be in a car. We managed to do everything we needed to do every day on our bikes. So no, I didn't feel that need to have a car. So my excuse for if anyone ever asked me, do I drive, continue to be, well, I got hit by a car when I was younger and I have trauma.
You take that elsewhere. Don't bring that here.
In 2018, I came back to the UK. Now, I came to the Midlands, even though public transport is not as easily accessible as in London. The town is so small that you can walk everywhere you need to go and be okay. It wouldn't be an extreme walk, or so I thought. I lived fairly close to the city center. I mean, we only got but one street here. I don't even know why I'm calling it city center. center, to the town center. I was able to walk to take my kids to school. I was able to walk to work. And I think also at that time, my kids were smaller, so they were in a buggy, in a pushchair. So I knew that they were comfortable. And as long as they're comfortable, I'm fine. Like I could walk everywhere I need to walk. However, being back in the UK started tugging at my pride, because there would be times you don't really want to be walking. You'd have to call an Uber. If I tell you guys how much money I spent on Ubers, wow, I think the money I spent on Ubers, I could have bought myself my first car. I can be quite a prideful person, and I had to like slowly swallow my pride and accept rides from people at inconvenient times, sometimes going out of their way to take you home, and it's from the goodness of their heart. But it started making me feel some type of way. You know when you feel like you're being a burden on someone? Like, I don't know, I just don't like that feeling at all. I hate depending on people, and I know that we are communal beings, and we are, you know, we have to accept and receive help from those who love us. But still, when you are in that position, it's hard. Well, at least for me, it was hard. But back then it wasn't so often, so it was okay. Then in 2020, I moved. Well, we moved, myself and the kids. The area is so lovely. How ever. It is so far, in my opinion, it's so far from town in the sense that it takes us about 35 minutes to 40 to walk to school, depending on what kind of day we're having. Some days we can do it quickly if the kids were using their scooters and they're a bit more energized and, you know, ready and excited to be in school. But most of the days it's already like a fight to get out of bed, and we have complaints, and then the weather is this and the weather is that. And you know, like living in England, this weather is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. The same day that you wake up to sunshine, about 20 minutes later it could be pouring rain on you. So we'd have to walk under adverse weather conditions, 35, 40 minutes, sometimes more, depending on how they were feeling. Food shopping is a hassle. You have to get an Uber. It was hard. And at this point I started feeling like, because you know, at this point my kids were no longer in their buggies, they were older. I really started to feel bad. Like I started to feel as a parent that I wasn't doing enough, because really and truly I didn't have to go through that when I was a child. My parents or everyone around me had transportation. I just thought I have to make changes now. It's not even about me anymore. It's about my kids. One of the friends that used to give me a ride, Deb, if you're ever listening to this, thank you so much. She's just been so welcoming and so helpful and just always so ready. And oftentimes I let my pride get in the way of that. And I think at times, you know, even though I was trying to come from a place where I don't want to burden you, it came across the wrong way. It came across as me being ungrateful or me being indifferent to the help. And one time she told me, she said, sometimes you have to gift someone with the opportunity to help because they want to, but they can't if you don't allow them to. And sometimes when they help you, it's more for them than it is for you. So you don't have to feel bad about receiving help or anything, because sometimes that person needs that moment. So, I mean, it was beautiful to hear it, but still my pride, it was just in the back of my head. Like, oh, I felt like I'm a big woman. Like, it's okay if you don't drive, if you don't need to, but I was starting to feel that need. I was starting to feel that fire in me to get this license and to get a car, because I was tired. At this point, the discomfort of life was so intense that it created that hunger in me to make change. This is such a big life lesson for me. Whenever you know you need to make a drastic change in your life, put yourself in a situation where you're going to be uncomfortable and watch you make the changes that you need to make. Because what? I was so uncomfortable with my life at that time and so miserable in a sense. I mean, even though life is still wonderful and I'm so grateful to be alive, the pressures of the discomfort made me get on it. So that was a little bit of a backstory, okay? So now let's get into the process of getting this license. I had to reapply for my provisional license because I used to have a provisional license in London years back, but it was just for ID purposes. But this time I actually needed it. It was a fairly easy process. You just go on, I think it was like the Gov website, and you apply for it really easily, straight on, boom, boom, pow. And because obviously we were still like overcoming COVID, there was a delay on everything. So the instructor that I wanted, that I was referred to, which happened to also be a dad at my kid's school, he was backed up with his students. And so he needed to clear himself of some students to make space for me. And because I was adamant that I wanted that instructor, I had to wait. But finally, in I think around April, early May, we were able to start our lessons. And that was in 2021. I booked a theory test for August and I didn't prepare myself properly. And so when August came around, I just created every excuse you can think of. I was like, yeah, I can't go because I have to work. I couldn't get it off. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't think to change the date on it. I just missed out on the appointment altogether. It took so long at that time to get slots because of COVID, because of how backed up everything was. So once I missed that slot in August, the next slot I can get was in January the following year, January 2022. Can you imagine? By this time, the discomfort had been so intense and I was paying so much money for my lessons. Yo, I was like, I'm not playing around. 2022 gonna come, you gonna watch me get this theory test. I'm gonna pass this on the first go.
No matter how the circumstance.
Because who got time and who got finances? Not I. By the time I think October started rolling around, I started getting serious. Now, if I have to give one advice, get the DVSA app if you are studying for your theory test. Everyone is different. My sister once gave me like a DVSA book to study the codes and everything. And I couldn't do it with the book. I'm a single mom. I work. I take care of my kids, I cook, I clean, I do everything. At what point am I gonna sit down with a book and study? Every time I try to open up that book, I just about read half a page and I was KO. It just wasn't working for me. Then my instructor told me, why don't you get an app? Get an app on your phone so that whenever you have a little free time, you can just practice test questions. So I got the app. It wasn't the DVSA app. So if I have any advice for you, get the DVSA app. The DVSA app will give you the sort of questions that come up on the theory test. I used the app that I had at the time. I would take the questions, I would study those questions, and whatever questions I didn't understand, I would ask my instructor. I wanted him to show me like in the car or when we're driving so that it can make sense to me, because sometimes when you're just reading something, you read it, you internalize it, but like, do you really digest the information? You get what I mean? Like when you're reading about the depth of something in the tire, I was just like, what the hell are they talking about? Like one day I told my instructor, I really don't understand this. Unless you show me what it is that I'm reading and what it is I'm learning. I'm one of those people, like I have to see, what do you call that? Like when you have to see something and live it to learn it. And he took me out of the car. He took me to one of the tires. He told me, put your finger in here. And then he showed me why that question was what it was and whatever. And sometimes he'd say, you know, this is gonna eat into our driving lesson. And I said, well, yeah, well, I'm not having my practical test yet. So until I pass this theory test, why am I stressed about the practical? So if we have to use half an hour, my lessons used to be 2 hours. If I have to use half an hour of the time to study for my theory test, so be it. Because you have the information and you can show me things that just reading in a book won't make sense to me. Also, the other thing that was like serious for me was getting the hazard perception. My instructor told me, if you do anything for this theory test, is you better get the hazard perception part down. This is where most people get it wrong. You either click too many times, or you don't click enough, or you click too early, or you click too late. You need to practice the hazard perception test a couple of times. When I tell you a couple of times, just so you have a feel for when you should be clicking hazards. We went on Google and we looked up free hazard perception tests and we just practiced those. I think now looking back, if I had to do it again, I would have downloaded the DVSA hazard perception part as well. The ones that I was doing online, they weren't exactly the same as what I got when I went to do my theory test. Out of the whole theory test, I scored the lowest on my hazard perception. So when the time came for the test, I made sure I got adequate rest. I wanted to be at tip-top shape. I woke up in good moods. I ate beforehand. I didn't eat anything that could affect me during the test. And then I went for it. And by God's good grace, y'all, I got it in the bag first go. And I was so happy. I was screaming all over the place, calling my instructor, calling everybody. We were halfway there. I promised myself that every time I failed my practical exam, I would owe him £100. Because I'm a woman of my word on most things, I knew that if I failed, I had to cough up £100. And do y'all know how stingy I am with my money? I'm a single mom. I am stingy. Everyone around me was saying, look, you're not gonna get it in the first. You might not even get it in the second. Most people get it in the third or the fourth. Don't be discouraged. Just keep going. And inside I said, look, y'all, I don't know what happened for y'all, but I know for myself. I need to get it on first go. I booked it and the earliest that I could get was July. And I remember in March, I was just thinking, oh my God, it's gonna take forever. It's gonna take forever. The reason why it also took me a long time is because I wanted to get my manual stick shift license. Had I done automatic, I'm sure I would have gotten it in half of the time. And also, I literally had no one else to drive with unless I was with my instructor. I didn't have friends' cars, partners' cars, family's cars to drive. I didn't have nobody's car to drive on. So literally I only drove when it was with my instructor. So if life happened and I didn't drive for like 2-3 weeks, by the time I started driving again, it would be like starting from zero, starting from scratch. So if I have another bit of advice for you, utilize the people you have around you. If you have friends, family, partners, siblings, whoever that have cars and they're willing to let you drive with them, utilize that. You might be able to do this in a quarter of the time that it took me to drive because I didn't have any other way of doing it. So finally, the 6th of July came. Your girl was pissing rocks. I was so scared. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I knew that I wasn't the best at parallel parking. I was praying to God that I wouldn't get parallel parking. And guess what I got? I got parallel parking on the exam. I don't know how. I just told myself, just keep calm, you got this, because if I stress, I'm gonna F it up. When I was driving, I was just doing like little breathing thing, like breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth, just so I could like try to keep calm, because I was like, I cannot mess this up. I don't have 100 pounds to be given to my instructor for fun. Who? Me? Never. I kept my composure, and that's what helped me go through it. Also, I made sure once again I ate. I'm one of those people, I don't function if I'm hungry. You get what I mean? I don't function if I'm hungry, so I made sure I ate. I made sure I didn't drink anything or I didn't eat anything that might upset my stomach, because what? Can you imagine in the middle of your test? Excuse me? So keep that in mind as well. And I wore comfortable clothes. Don't wear anything that's like tight, because in that moment, when you're in the pressure of an exam, little things get was exacerbated. Guys, by the time my test was done, do you know how much I sweat? I was wearing sweats. You could see sweat stains. Like, I was sweating, but I did it. And when the man told me, you have successfully completed your exam and you have passed, I just sat there looking at him. Okay. And he said, I'm going to repeat myself. You have successfully completed your exam. You have passed. And I was like, oh, thank you. Because my brain had been working so hard before that it took me a minute for the adrenaline to like, you know. So it's only when he left the car, my instructor's like, Djena, you passed. And I was like, I passed! It was amazing. At the end of the test, the examiner then took my provisional license. He gave me a little diploma. I don't have it on hand at the moment, but he gave me a little like certificate to say that I had passed. And a couple of days later, I got my official UK driver's license in the mail. What helped me is keeping calm, eliminating anything that could potentially affect me on that day. Hunger, eliminate. I didn't drink too much. I went to the bathroom at the testing center so that I wouldn't feel it when I was driving. Comfortable clothes, breathing techniques, prayers. I prayed, my mama prayed. I mean, if that's not your thing, that's not your thing. But you know, whatever works for you, baby, do it. And yeah, I got it in the bag. And I think above all of that, it was this need to do it for my kids. I knew that it wasn't just for me. It wasn't just 100 pounds from my instructor. It wasn't anything. I was doing it to show my kids that when you want something, if you believe it, you achieve it. This is what I always tell them. And as cliche as it sounds, this was one of those moments. So it doesn't matter how old you are. If you want to drive, you will do it. Be intentional. Set your goals. Start working towards it. The road might be long. Look at my road. My road was extremely long. It was extremely expensive. It doesn't matter, because I knew that this was something I needed and I just had to have it. I had to get it. And I'm so proud of myself for sticking through. Yeah, here I am. I got my license at 36 and I feel so fulfilled. I know this is something so minor to so many people, because most people get their licenses while they're young. Their parents, in fact, encourage them to get their licenses, but that wasn't my story. So
now let me tell you something, because you don't know nothing.
I was one of those people that was so certain that I would never drive a car. I was so certain of it. And if I am here today, you can definitely do it. Do not let challenges, obstacles, people's mouths, affect or influence what you decide to do. And this is not limited to just driving. I mean, anything in life. When you set your mind to something, be intentional, be focused and determined, you will do it. And that's what I'm trying to do now with the rest of my life. Thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took something from this. But now let me say something. If you are not able to get a license, don't feel bad because your kids have to walk somewhere, okay? Because that same journey of walking is what's going to motivate them to do more for themselves in the future. So don't you feel bad about it. Luckily for me, I was in a situation where I was able to do something about it. But if you are not able to do something about it, I don't want you to feel guilty, or I don't want you to feel bad, or I don't want you to feel any type of negative way because you're unable to change your circumstance at that moment. However, at the first chance you have of changing it, grab it by the balls, okay? We have to keep evolving. We have to keep doing better for ourselves and for those we love. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this video was useful, was helpful. If you are in your journey of obtaining your license, good luck. You got this. I know you can do it. When you do it, come back and tell me how it went for you, okay? If you have any questions for me, if you have any comments, let's discuss in the comment section down below. And please, please, please subscribe to my channel. It will help me more than you can imagine. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Djena, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.